had a second meeting with the mayors of Milford and Cooperstown and some other key players to create a strategy for the joint promotion of the Cooperstown to Oneonta corridor for new business and specifically for new residents. We will also look for ways that those three municipalities can collaborate with one another for their mutual benefit. In just days, the mayor's office will be welcoming interns from both SUNY and Hardwick, who will be working with the city, with the Office of the Aging, and students at both colleges to develop programs of support and social connection for Oneonta's elder population, which is more and more me. Another set of interns will be researching and compiling a sortable, filterable, and easily accessed database of resources offered by local institutions and agencies that will help new and expanding businesses to succeed in Oneonta. These collaborations between the colleges, service agencies, and the city are exciting on their face, but they are also microcosmic samples of the value to the community of collaboration with and between our two colleges. Speaking of collaboration, SUNY Oneonta President Cardei has graciously offered the Morris Complex for an initial meeting of more than 24 local agencies and community leaders in our first exploration of the strategies required to create a railroad-themed children's museum in downtown Oneonta. That could be an amazing addition to Oneonta. I expect it'll be a project that will garner much affection from young families and from grandparents. Obviously, as it is elsewhere, it would be a hit among the kids. Another hit among a key demographic, those aged 25 to 39, is the notion of state-of-the-art entertainment on Oneonta's Market Street. Indoor golf, bocce, a virtual reality arcade, axe throwing. That's a real thing, right? Anyway, they're hugely popular in other communities, and added to our already robust entertainments, these and other fun activities will inform a new vision of Market Street. Working in collaborative partnership with private developers, our downtown will come alive with two thoroughfares working in harmony to provide complementary destinations for shopping and dining and for entertainment. This only happens with respect and flexibility and a willingness to collaborate. And we are already making some progress. Working with Delaware Engineering and Sandy Mathis, our contracted development coordinator, who has already expressed interest in Market Street from one of New York's premier developers. Make that two. The interest has been helped by the positive opinions about working with the city of Oneonta that have been graciously offered by Kearney Development relative to their construction of the Lost on Dietz and the Hardwick Crane Innovation Center. With more than 60 apartments in the Lost project and more to come with Springbrook's reimagining of the Ford block, we are beginning to address Oneonta's need for housing. Further, the development on Market Street with its upper floors dedicated to long-term apartment leases will transform Oneonta and the options it can offer for those who wish to live, work, and play in the city. In the near term, you'll begin to see progress being made with the demolition of the former Oneonta sales building at 27 Market Street. Not long after, the long-needed rehabilitation of the parking garage will begin, with the inclusion of the transit hub, which will move Oneonta public transit buses out of Main Street traffic, making the city more walkable and strengthening downtown Oneonta's position as a regional destination. Both the transit hub and the garage will reflect the new expectation of construction set forth in Oneonta's forward-thinking, form-based code, which will ensure that the aesthetic of our historic downtown will be echoed in all that's new. So thank you, Steve Yearley, for your creative vision and the untold number of hours you put in on that. From this to the plans for spring-summer 2022, completion of the West Street construction to other details of city improvements, I hope you'll join your neighbors in tuning into my weekly video messaging for updates. I am committed to a robust level of communication. Doesn't matter how many of you out there. I'm going to tell you, regular updates to social media, weekly videos, a monthly podcast, columns in both newspapers, and an improved and user-friendly interface to the city's website are just some examples of our strategy for community engagement and the sharing of information. Communication and collaboration. That's our commitment. That's my commitment. And with this particular bit of communication here, I want to take this opportunity to make you aware of some of the many accomplishments of this past year. So thank you to the city administrator, the department heads, the city staff, for providing so many great additions to the city of Oneonta this year. If you loved First Night's Festival of Lights, as we did, that was just phase one of the park's electric infrastructure improvements. Wait till you see next year. And did you know that there's an app that sends dog lovers to Oneonta for the premier dog park experience? It's true. I've talked to people that have gone well out of their way to visit Oneonta's dog park. How great is that? Same thing with the pickleball courts. Did you notice, by the way, that the streetlights have been upgraded to LED? I know you guys know that. But have you guys noticed that? No, it's a fact. I doubt that you noticed that the water supply infrastructure in the water treatment plant has been upgraded. But you would. You'd notice eventually if we didn't do it. And how about the opening of a rapid result community accommodating COVID testing site? That was collaboration of the city, the county, SUNY Oneonta, and Quadrant Biosciences. Collaboration. So that's the word I want you guys to take home tonight. I am proud to say that the collaboration and teamwork are becoming the expectation of city government. It starts with respect, as I have for the city administrator, and clearly he has for the mayor. As we work together as a team, respectful of one another's roles, but also of our strengths, communicating and collaborating, we will set an example for the staff, we will set an example for the community, and we'll set an example for the mayors and city managers in other cities. Having just returned from the New York State Conference of Mayors, where I had the opportunity to swap stories with a lot of mayors and city managers, I'll tell you that Oneonta's well-documented problems in that area are not all that unique. This city administrator and mayor will end that. In fact, we have ended that. Oneonta, from its city government to its elected officials, to its business owners, to its workforce, its students, its neighborhoods, Oneonta, we are going to shine. This is our time. This is our light switch. Our light switch moment. Together, we can and we will make the state of our city a beacon of invitation and an example of how much can be achieved when everyone is invited to the table. Everyone's voice is heard, and everyone's commitment to helping make Oneonta a better place is respected and nurtured. God bless every single one of you. Let's leave here tonight with a commitment to work together to make our home, our neighborhoods, and our city better every single day. Thank you. For the folks at home, I want you to know that there's a long list of accomplishments and projects that I didn't get into this speech. You can find it on the announcements page at oneonta.ny.us. A lot of stuff. Thanks. We're going to do some quick housekeeping, then we'll continue on. Everybody works. will move to petitioners and public hearings. And do we have, what do we have here? Public hearing before the mayor on an ordinance amending chapter 210-7 of the City of Oneonta Municipal Code to establish a time limit for the application of a license following a successful exam attempt. This ordinance was approved by the Common Council on February 1st, 2022. Do we have anybody here to speak on that? We don't. And so with that, we don't at all. So with that, we'll close that public hearing. And Carrie, you can quote me if I'm doing this wrong. Petitioners, thank you. Thank you. So I think we may have petitioners here. And if you would, Carrie, would you just identify yourself and your location, residence in the city? And
my name is Carol Keene-Kirky. I reside in the City of Oneonta at 120 Center Street. I have lived at that address for 10 years now. Prior to that, I was a resident of the town of Oneonta, have downsized and was lucky enough to find good housing in the City of Oneonta. I'm happy to say that my neighborhood is one of those you were talking about. We are multi-generational. There are little ones in the neighborhood. There are older folks in the neighborhood. And there are folks in between. And because of that, and because of my concern for an issue in that neighborhood, I'm here to address you tonight. Thank you, Carrie, for saving my toast. I did send you each an email, forgot to attach the letter, and then resent it later today or yesterday, whenever that was. So I do have copies available if you'd like one, but I would like to take some of your time. I would love one if you don't mind. Sure, not at all. Can you tell I was a teacher for 3 years?
I'll give it to you too. As being one of your former students, I'm still ill prepared. My homework assignment's late.
Yes. Okay. And the letter is addressed to all of you. I reside at 120 Center Street, directly across from Wilbur Park in the City of Oneonta. I'm writing with concerns about the increase in speeding traffic on Center Street in that neighborhood. In this area, there are 3 intersections where pedestrians cross Center Street to enter or leave Wilbur Park at Roosevelt Avenue, Walling Boulevard, and Taft Avenue. Those crossings are used many times each day by pedestrians, young and old. At one point, I predicted that there were estimated that there were probably about 100 crossings a day into and out of the park. Some of these folks have toddlers and strollers and a bicycle. Others are walking their pets, and others are simply walking. Cars approaching from the west on Center Street often increase their speed dramatically as they come up that blind hill. I swear I have seen some cars take air as they get to the top of that hill. This creates a dangerous situation for pedestrians and drivers at the blind intersection on Roosevelt Ave. You're familiar with that, I'm sure.
I am.
At the blind driveway at 120 Center Street, and at any other crossing points in the area. It's not unusual for these vehicles to swerve rather than slow down when they encounter a pedestrian or another vehicle. A little aside here, I think about once a week as I'm crossing the park with or without my dog. You know, before you cross, you look both ways, of course, but we have to listen as well. And cars are going so fast that you don't make it across the street before a car approaches, and they don't always slow down. So crossing the street, coming out of those side streets, coming out of my driveway, has become increasingly dangerous. Cars approaching from the east side tend to pick up speed as they travel downhill and fail to slow down for pedestrians. Drivers entering Center Street from the sideways or driveways onto Center Street must be extraordinarily cautious to avoid accidents with speeding cars. The 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Center Street is clearly now posted in both directions. Thanks to the efforts of our council member Luke Murphy, a more visible sign was installed at Center and Wallet, which was not visible because of overgrowth of trees and shrubbery. And a new speed limit sign was posted up at the Draper end of the street where none had been posted before. There is a pedestrian crossing sign at Center and Walling, but there's no painted crosswalk there or anywhere else from Walling Avenue to Draper Street, that whole length of Center Street. I'm asking for your support in seeking a remedy that will result in safer conditions for pedestrians and drivers in our neighborhood. Previous efforts by police to enforce the speed limit were helpful, but only in the short term. A permanent, effective remedy is necessary to protect all those who walk, ride, or drive in this area. I thank you for your attention to these concerns. I'm willing to answer any questions you might have, and I'm willing to work with you in finding a solution to this project. The only solutions I know to suggest are perhaps a street sign, painted crosswalks, more speed limit signs, but you folks are the experts, so I hope we can work together to solve this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or further comments?
I just have one comment,
Yes.
Mark. I would offer that we are actually not experts in traffic. So what I would suggest, and I'm going to recommend, is that we ask our DPW and city engineering to take a look at this, to offer solutions that might work.
Absolutely, I can just jump in and say that after receiving your letter, Carol, we already reached out to DPW, and we'll make sure those pavement markings are put down as soon as we practically can this spring.
Sure.
The contractor's available, weather is conducive, and OPD's gonna put up do a speed study there. We can get some data that will back up what
Great.
you're saying and inform any future study as to whether there's some other improvements we can do there. So we're definitely gonna take a good look.
Okay, I might recommend that, and I'm a former teacher, and I'm sorry you guys who are alums, but from 7 to 7:30 in the morning, Center Street becomes like a speedway. It's a quick way to get from point A to point B without any stop signs or traffic lights, and that really has increased over the 10 years that I've been here. So thank you.
Luke?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Carol, for coming to council with this. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and also thank Greg. He's always been very quick to respond via email and offer insight and solutions. So thank you both.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your attendance, too, appreciate that. With that, we'll move to our boards and commission reports, as we have no more petitioners, I presume. Betsy, you've got something? So we'll have something for me later. We'll move to boards and commission reports, please, with the Housing Commission to begin. That's you, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. We met on, I believe it was February 2nd. Probably one of the shorter meetings I've been in. It lasted about 27 minutes. Their organization, which at that time was they elected to go to a co-chair structure, which was Danny Lappin and Ed May. Danny Lappin has since resigned from the Housing Commission. He's had some work come up with his new job that's been interfering with the meetings on Monday. Because in case you don't know, Danny's in charge of the New York State DRI stuff now and works with municipalities. So he's on a lot of Zoom meetings and in-person meetings now. So work started getting in the way. Everything that kind of discussed revolved a little bit about what projects were already started. And but Danny wasn't able to be at that meeting. So I'm assuming that when we have our next meeting next month is we're going to take a look at everything that started, and they'll probably see which ones they want to tackle and go from there. One of the things that was brought up real quick was I guess the city of Utica started this, and Joanne Fox brought this up, and there wasn't a lot of information about it, was there's a group started that's looking at the refugee resettlement program, and they want to work with the Housing Commission to see if that's viable for the city. They realize that we do have a housing stock issue, and they don't want to put us forward if we're not going to be able to meet those type of needs because we just don't have the housing. I believe they were talking about having somebody come talk to the Housing Commission. Joanne was gonna get back to us with a little bit more on that. Some of the old businesses, they still were looking at trying to sit down with some landlords, and try to get something going there to see how the landlords could work with the city and with the housing stock to try to help free up some housing. They wanted to reach out to a developer, just to have them come walk the city and get there's a developer, I forgot who your husband said, Katie, I can't remember his name, but, that did some work in the city. They want him to come and say what worked for how it was to work with the city, how it was, what challenges they saw and what they could, what they would like to see maybe the city start moving to help make, development in the city easier.
Was that Chuck Cleveland?
Yes, thank you. So, and that was the meeting.
Very good. Any questions for Scott on the Housing Commission? No. All right, thank you very much, Scott. And then moving to our report on the Board of Public Service. Council Member Falco.
Yes, thank you. So I was absent for the meeting that was held on February 3rd, and I had to go out of town unexpectedly. But Marjorie thankfully sent me her notes. So the appeal from 8 Cozy Avenue was denied because the owner and manager have been able to comply with other inspections despite COVID, and the fact that the code office had been open and available during the times that other successful inspections were taking place. Then they approved the appeal to lift the $2,500 blighted fee due to a lack of notice. There was confusion between the city clerk and code who would send the blighted letter notice. I believe this is also for 8 Cozy Ave. Then for 10 Rose Avenue, they tabled the blighted property fee question until the next meeting, and Mr. Johnson will submit a new restoration agreement before the March meeting. And for 13 Baker, they approved going ahead with the blighted fee. That is all.
All right, very good. Any questions on the Board of Public Service report from any council members? I see none. Thank you very much, Emily. Moving on to the Environmental Board. I believe that's you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. The Environmental Board met on February 8th, and the first order of business, they had representatives from the DEC to speak about the deer population. There was a bit of a presentation, but it was primarily a lot of question and answer about managing deer populations and what other communities have done. As Mayor Durnick noted in his Friday address, one of the big takeaways, at least for me, was that not feeding the deer is certainly a big start in terms of trying to begin to address the deer population. I would see if you'd like to, or recommend if you'd like to look at that entire discussion, check out the YouTube video. It was about a half-an-hour discussion with the DEC representatives, and it was quite informative. In other business, the standing committees reported in. Urban Forest, one standing committee. They have a spring order of 20 American Liberty elms that will be coming in late fall. And they're going to be looking for sites to plant those elms. There's also the We Are Tree City USA community, and they're going to be doing an audit of our codes and policies regarding trees. So I think, Greg, I think they've been in contact with you, or will be in contact with you about those particular codes, but everything looks pretty, we have some ship-shape codes in terms of our trees. They also discussed having a scavenger hunt, for example, for the biggest elm or the biggest maple within the city, to try to bring a little bit more kind of public interest around Arbor Day and celebration of being a Tree City USA community. So wait to see if that begins to get off the ground, but that sounded pretty cool in my estimation. Community engagement, they are going to continue to use the Facebook site as a way to disseminate information. I would recommend for folks, if you haven't already, to follow that Facebook group. It's City of Oneonta Environmental Board, and they have quite a bit of kind of public service announcements that are present on that Facebook. They talked about, again, working with very closely with the city administrator and the city staff to look at sustainable purchasing and There's a green purchasing, and reiterated again their thankfulness to be working closely with city staff on these types of issues. I think they feel like they are working closely, and that is quite enjoyable by the group, who oftentimes feel like they're kind of on the side here. Public spaces. There's a creek naming project that is underway. It's been underway for a number of months, and there's going to be continued outreach to the principals of middle school and high school as that project begins to move along, and hopefully it will have some more kind of development this spring as students get to be more active in terms of naming these different creeks. Another conversation about deer populations, old business, and they're going to be making some recommendations to the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee about those recommendations. And then lastly, a new issue came up talking about climate adaptation and what the city plans to do to address kind of issues from global warming impacts, and not just about mitigation, but also adaptation. So that's going to become something that the Environmental Board will be focusing on a little bit more in future meetings. And that represents
Councilmember Davis, thank you so much. Does anybody have any comments, questions? Yes, I'm sorry.
Quick question. You said we have 20 Liberty Elms coming this fall. Considering we typically lose about a quarter of any batch that we plant for various reasons, how big are these going to be? Do you have a diameter?
I'm going to defer to Greg on that one. Greg, I think you're involved in the purchasing of those, right?
Yeah, those were actually purchased a year and a half ago or so. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the caliber will be, what the diameter. We've been trying to order as big as we can.
Yeah.
2 inches usually what we can get, and then we go plant. So, I agree, it's frustrating when the small ones get really broken.
Well, I figure depending on the size, we may want to be strategic about where they're planted. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Scott?
Greg, where do we typically plant these?
Along the streets, in the median. In some cases, we're able to get permission from homeowners to plant behind the sidewalk if they're willing to take on that, ownership of that tree. Obviously, it's a street tree, even if it's not technically between the sidewalk and the curb. Our goal is obviously to build the urban canopy, so anywhere there's trees lacking is where we're trying to focus. Of course, there's utility issues and site distance issues that we, take into consideration, but the environmental board has always been Dave Hutchison prior to this. He's no longer on the board. A couple of others are stepping up to kind of lead that effort to identify sites along with our contracted urban certified arborist, Fred Hathaway. So working with DPW eventually.
Any other questions, any other comments? So, thank you very much. And we're going to stay with you now, Councilmember Parrish, for a while.
Yeah.
Starting with the Public Arts Commission report.
Okay, so Public Arts met on February 9th. It was a Wednesday, as it usually is. We started with a piece of correspondence from Andrew Himmel, who's in the audience, requesting a 9/11 memorial be considered somewhere in the city. The Heartwood Wall was discussed, but that's usually sort of a temporary thing. So we also talked about potentially like a first responder themed mural, maybe somewhere on the public safety building. That was really well received, so that's something that I think that the commission is going to take forward. We had an update on the mural on the Ford Sales Building. Hopefully that does not come down soon, because we want the art to be up for as long as possible. We haven't gotten, so we have reached out and notified the person who was awarded the mural, and we're just waiting to get the contract signed for that so that he can get started on some of these nicer days that we're having. And we're just waiting on a timetable on the demolition for that, just to make sure that that project can still go forward. Let's see. We talked about usable spaces for art. A couple of the commissioners took a trip to Albany, which has a really robust public arts program. They talked about what makes a space a good space for public art. It's not just a wall. It's a matter of being sort of unexpected and catching you off guard and creating joy in that way. We have talked about underneath overpasses, because we have several of those, and they're usually just graffiti and kind of gross. And so the goal there is to figure out permissions with DOT to figure out what we need to do some art on those. We also discussed doing a call for walls, where basically we would ask the community to volunteer space that they might have that they think would be appropriate for public art. And so that may happen at a later date. We had a presentation from Parks Administrator Lansing with regard to a proposed service dog memorial in proximity to the dog park in Newell Park. It's something she's very passionate about, and she gave us a really thorough explanation and presentation of what she'd like to see there. Again, that was really well received, and I think she was just sort of at this point looking for support from the commission, which she received. We discussed the possibility of a poet laureate for the city of Oneonta. Again, really excited about that idea. I kind of took it upon myself from that meeting I'm going to take that forward and get some more information on what that might entail. But we talked about the Poet Laureate program, what that means, how we would select one, how we would put out the call for nominations for one. We also talked about ways to integrate poetry into visual art, which I thought was really cool. Like, it was a really good conversation. And so I'm kind of excited about that. And then we talked a little bit more about wrapping the utility boxes, which would be sort of a community-oriented project, not something that necessarily would be put out for professional artists to do, but more like community members. Ian Austin has done a really great job of getting some information on that and getting that project rolling. He reached out to Prolific, the sign shop, to get details on vinyl wraps, which we did just receive via email, and so we'll talk more about that at our next meeting and kind of establish a budget for that, and if there are going to be any sort of fees associated with that in order to sort of sponsor a box. Yeah, so that's kind of exciting. And that was it. That was the totality of the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Katie. Does anyone have any questions for Katie on this? All right, in that case, we're going to let you rock and roll.
All right, on to the next one. So Parks met yesterday. I was also in attendance. That was fun. That was our first, well, I don't know, maybe not for everyone, but it was my first meeting without Peterson. So that was great. It was really nice to be in the room with everybody, just as it is to be here. So we did our organizational business at the meeting last night, selected chairs. The current chairs are going to continue, co-chairs are going to continue for 2022. So that's Beth Ashbaugh and Carolyn Marks. They do a really nice job together. They're adorable. So they just support each other really well. Okay, so then we had our Parks Administrator report, which is Lou Lansing. She mentioned a change to the user fees, which is something that we had approved when we did the fee schedule. So she has reported on that to the commission. Any info on that is going to be on the Oneonta Rec Desk site, which is the new site where you can reserve parks facilities and plan applications for use. She gave an update on the Hodges Pond project. It is going to go forward in the spring. She doesn't have a specific date, but she just wanted us to know that that's still a go. There is a request from a biology professor at SUNY Oneonta, Donna Vogler, who would like to study the effect of dog waste left over in the dog park in the spring, like left over from the winter. We don't know what she wants to do with that data, but she's going to share it with us when she gets it. So we'll have that. We'll learn more. As everybody probably knows, she just mentioned that the pit run is going to be retiring. They're a long-time Parks and City user. Obviously, a really memorable race in the city. It's definitely going to be missed. So that was just an FYI item. She did have someone reach out about with a request to install a little free library in Wilbur Park. The current sort of suggested place for that is near the Appleblaw Gardens, which is that paved and landscaped area at the top of Wilbur Park. Everybody thought that was a really great idea because it's just a nice place to go, like with a book. So if there's a little place where you can be like, oh, a new book, great. That would be good. Again, really, really well received. Everything at the parks, everybody had really good suggestions, and so everything was really well received there. We did discuss the possibility of vandalism, which is obviously a concern with anything that we do. But there are a couple of other successful little free libraries in the community. There's one just over on Elm Street, and then there's one at the entrance. It's on someone's private property, but it faces the park, the lower entrance to Wilbur Park near the tennis courts. And those overall have been pretty successful, and little free libraries are generally successful kind of everywhere they are. So this will be installed. She'll have help from the city, but it'll be installed and maintained by the person who is requesting it. Oh, and her husband's gonna build it in the shape of a little red caboose, which is pretty cute. So yeah, so everybody was pretty excited about that. Oh, her name is Andy Simone, and she has partnered. She's on the Friends of the Library board. And she partnered with Tina Winstead, who's the director of the library, for this. We discussed the expansion of the community gardens into Fort Wilcox Park. The group that oversees the community gardens did some background information on, or background work on what it would take to expand the community gardens. I think that's southward toward the Fort Wilcox house. And basically, I think the majority of the cost is in land preparation and fencing, and they estimated about $6,500 for that. So that's something that's not budgeted this year, but I know that there is a demand for an expanded community garden. So potentially through the budget process, maybe that can go to committees, and we can get that rolling maybe for next community garden season, which would be really cool. The Wilbur Park, we covered a lot. I'm so only like halfway through my notes, I'm sorry. I feel like I've been talking a lot. I've been mentioning for several months here about a survey to gather insight on what people would like to see going forward in Wilbur Park. That survey is live, it went live today. More information on that can be found on the city's Facebook, which is City of Oneonta-Government, and the Parks and Rec page, which is City of Oneonta Parks and Recreation, and on my Facebook page. So it's all over this place. It's a pretty short survey. We worked actually really hard. Well, I shouldn't say we. Lou and the co-chairs worked really hard on making sure that the survey is concise. And Carrie did just the lion's share of getting it up on the website and making sure that it's formatted easily and easily accessible, and all of the publicity and promotion and press releases. So thank you, Carrie, for that. There's a t-shirt giveaway that coincides with that. So for folks who take the survey, it's completely anonymous, but if you'd like, the very last question is to enter your email to be entered into a giveaway for a really cute t-shirt that says "I love the parks." We're going to give away 5 a week for 5 weeks. So, do that and be a lucky recipient. And also have a say in sort of how the park goes forward in the shape of that park. I assume you'll take it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, but 5 a week. Service dog. Oh, I heard again about the service dogs. It was really great. It was adorable. Lou is really passionate about this. Same thing. She gave us the background. It was really well received by the commission. Everyone thinks it's great. She has it really well thought out. And so she got the support of the commission on that, or the board. Parks and Rec. We're a commission. Okay. There was a proposal, kind of a last minute proposal, that the event isn't for a while, but the proposal came in pretty quickly before the meeting, for an Eco Fest, which is proposed by the Susquehanna Headwaters Environmental Collaborative, which is SHEC. It's 3 organizations: the Otsego County Conservation Association, the Delaware Otsego Audubon Society, and the Otsego County Solid Waste and Planning Department. They formed the SHEC. They would like to have an Eco Fest in the park July 9th of this year. It sounds pretty cool. They gave us kind of a rudimentary flyer for what they'd like to have. There were no other registered users for that day, no historical users, so everybody was pretty excited about it, and that was approved. So look for that, July 9th. We had some organizational business with regard to some of our meeting dates changing throughout the year, but I won't bore you with those. The concert series is on for this year. The summer concert series, it runs from June 30th to August 18th. That's Thursdays at 7 in the park. And then I asked a couple of questions with regard to a couple different things. One being concerts for kids. So our summer concert series is really well received and typically aimed at adults. And I had reached out last year to Lou and to Katrina from Destination Oneonta about potentially booking some children's music talent to get kids involved in that kind of thing. And so Lou was going to partner with Katrina and look into that a little bit more. So maybe more on that later. I also asked for an update on the potential of a splash park in Neowah Park or some sort of like water-based accessible entertainment. A couple of us had met with a company over the frigid winter to talk about in the park, to talk about the possibility of installing this great facility. And they were just going to get back to us with some pricing and things. And so that's all sort of going through Greg, and he was talking back and forth with them. So just making sure that that's still moving. And then I had something, and I had brought this to the Public Arts Commission last meeting about the Telephones of the Wind thing, which is the grief phone that's not connected to anything in the park. And so I brought that to Parks last night. And again, everybody was really excited about that. Similar to the Little Free Library, we sort of have to figure out the process of the installation of something by a private entity on public property and how that works. But Parks Administrator Lansing was going to take that forward and connect with the constituent on that. So yeah, and we did all of that in just under an hour, which is about how long it took me to read the poem. Thank you everyone for listening and your patience.
All right, does anybody have any questions or comments, Scott?
You said red caboose, and it triggered my mind.
Yes.
Somebody came up and asked about the windows for our D&H caboose down in Neowah Park. And they're like, can we please get the windows clean? I said, well, not in the middle of winter time we won't, but.
Right.
So if you can just have that on the radar at some point. And then they also asked about access, and because there's like no hours or anything like that, because they like to bring their kids to see a caboose and explain it. So maybe that's something we could do in the future, maybe get some hours or something.
Greg is saying it's a once-a-year thing.
Typically, late spring sometime before the summer season.
I was just impressed that somebody saw it there in the winter.
In terms of access, though, it's all closed off because of vandalism. So
Right,
you
yeah,
can't
they were
let
just
people-
wondering like if there could be some hours or something like that once in a while, that it could be opened up and be, advertised or something like that, so they could.
That would be cool. I wonder if the Sport Wilcox folks would be interested in doing something like that, or someone with the Historical Society.
Actually, if I could, the Oneonta Historical Society has traditionally done it at the 4th of July fest, and did it annually until we stopped having it. So it's something that they've done regularly and opened it up and made it available for the public, and they do tours and answer questions and.
We have precedent.
Cool, thanks, Scott.
Sure. Any other questions for no? I just have a quick comment, which is, I don't know if Donna's not going to find anything for her project in the dog park because everybody cleans up after their dog.
That was discussed. That was discussed. We'll see.
All right. Moving on to our committee reports, and we are looking for a report from the Finance and Human Resources Committee, and so we turn to Councilmember Carson.
Thank you, Mayor. We met February 7th. We have a few items on our agenda. The first one was that New York State Electric and Gas would like to donate $1,000 to our fire department for a natural gas detector. With no objections, that item was brought to full council.
City Administrator Greg Tice requested a modification to the bucket truck for DPW. They requested moving from a 45-foot boom truck to a 52-foot boom truck. So the cost would move up to approximately $179,105. The airport terminal reconstruction change order is that New York State Environmental Conservation requested that we would upgrade a stormwater collection system that we have. That change order will be 100% paid for by the FAA, and that number was $89,125. That item was moved up to full council. When we had our 50th anniversary, we did have a celebration from that. There was some funds generated. We've held on to them for quite some time. We're asking to use $4,800 of that fund balance for 4 invoices. The waste oil furnace needs to be replaced. This was not an item that was foreseen to go bad in 22 budget. And City Administrator Tice is asking for the funds to replace that. I don't believe that that's on our agenda because it doesn't need to be. Is that correct, Dave?
That's right, there's no budget amendment necessary for that, but with Central Garage is one.
Greg has laid out the vision for the Grants Administration Department to move into a planning and development department. And within our minutes, I'm not going to sit here and read them all. We listed that out. That's going to be a discussion item, I believe, tonight. And I didn't see it on tonight's agenda, but Greg did bring up the acting city administrator. I suggested moving that up to full council so that we could have a council discussion on that. As you're well aware, within the charter, it says that the city administrator has 30 days to make a selection for an acting city administrator. Obviously, we're past that 30 days, and I thought it would be best if all of us had a discussion about the acting city administrator. Mayor, I don't know how you want to do
Yeah,
that.
so if we in fact do that this evening, it will be an executive session.
I believe that's all the items we had on our agenda. Try to answer
Good.
everybody's questions.
Any questions for Glenn? No questions. Very good. Okay, then we will move on to our city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. We have several employment opportunities in the city currently. You won't be surprised to hear that we're continuing to look for bus drivers, as typically always. We also have an exam announced for firefighter. The due date for the filing is tomorrow, so if you want to be a firefighter or know anyone that does, tell them to get their application in as soon as possible by tomorrow. As everyone probably is aware from a press release yesterday, OPD did arrest a person in connection with the MBT bank robbery that occurred back in the beginning of December. Really good work by OPD along with their partners, the state police, U.S. Homeland Security, as well as MBT Bank Services, Security Services. Brian, our chief map of the fire department, along with Judy Pangman, community development director, and Tim Foster in the fire department as well, and put a lot of effort in. And as well as our finance director putting together all the numbers in short order really for the SAFER grant application. That's a FEMA grant for the potential to add additional firefighters to our workforce. They were able to submit that on February 4th. And we believe it's a strong application, and we hope to hear back sometime around June, possibly longer. It's not a set date, but that's the rough timeline we're looking at. As discussed in the past, we'll have more discussions at the council and committee level regarding the idea of adding firefighters to the fire department. Tax collection continues to come in. We've collected so far over 80%. It's on par with historical trends according to Finance Director Lee. Water and sewer billing, we expect to have those out late February or early March. the annual billings, which is the majority of our accounts. That will include, as always, a link to our annual water quality report. DPW, just today, you might have seen a PSA regarding a water main break, this time on Linton Street near Spruce Street. That's our 5th of this winter season. They've isolated that and are working to make repair. And then the last thing I would mention is that West Street Reconstruction is slated to begin this spring, possibly mid-March. It's going to depend a little bit on the weather, but we're working with the contractors to make preparations for that now, with the goal to complete the project by the end of August. That's an aggressive goal, but that's what we're aiming for at this point. And that we'll obviously release a press release with some details ahead of the project, but that does involve a full road closure of West Street from Chestnut to Center Street with a detour by Church Street for the majority of the spring summer.
Yeah.
Right.
It is what it is.
So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, but
So Greg, with regards to the West Street project, are we moving forward, or have we moved forward with purchasing materials as we had?
Yeah, those were purchased last summer when the project was initially awarded to Harvey Robinson. Part of the reason we delayed the project start was because of the material shipment delays. I think
Correct.
most everything is in stock now.
Good.
Should be ready.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Just a thing with the road closures, I believe both Suco and Hartwick's graduation are simultaneous this year on the same date.
the 21st.
And so I don't know if you want to make contact with somebody at the college and let them know so that they get that information out. So when they're coming, they know what they got to take all these detours to get.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been in contact with them. We discussed initially it was going to be during September, or August, maybe moving in last year, so we talked all that through. It'll be a similar operation for graduation. That's what we're-
Any other questions for Greg? Good, well, thank you very much, Greg. Greg, I think you've all heard enough from me today, but I will just say, ask that we all send our thoughts and prayers to our beloved former Mayor David Brenner, who's in serious condition. He's hospitalized at the moment, so you just to keep him in your thoughts, please. And with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And we have motion number 1, that the common council approves the minutes of the regular meeting held February 1st, 2022. Number 2, the approval of the warrants. Of the motion that the common council approves the warrants totaling $204,553.96, and that the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. 3, that the common council designates the city administrator as the city's certifying officer for the purpose of monitoring all activities associated with the State Environmental Quality Review Seeker Act requirements as they might pertain to projects that are funded by grants through the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program as administered by the New York State Office of Community Renewal, OCR. Motion 4, that the common council rescinds the January 18th, 2022 motion, which approved the purchase of a bucket truck in the amount of $140,464, and now approves the purchase of a bucket truck in the amount of $179,405 from Alltech Industries Incorporated of Birmingham, Alabama, under a cooperative contract through Sourcewell 012418-ALT, which is NYS OGS contract PC 52628. The council further authorizes this purchase to be funded from the General Fund Highway Equipment Reserve. Motion number 5, that the common council approves a budget amendment for change order number 1 for a total of $89,125.73 for the Albert S. Nader Regional Airport Terminal Apron Reconstruction contract with Boland's Excavation and Topsoil from Compton, New York, bringing the contract amount from $1,311,731 to $1,400,856.73, which will be 100% funded by the Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program, AIP grant. Motion number 6, that the Common Council approves a budget amendment in the amount of $4,900 for various airport supplies, increasing code A.5610.409 airport materials and supplies, and increasing appropriated reserves code A.511.0, utilizing funds donated to the city as part of the airport's 50th anniversary celebration. 7, the motion that the Common Council authorizes the Director of Finance to accept a donation in the amount of $1,000 from the New York State Electric and Gas to be restricted for use by the City of Oneonta Fire Department, and further authorizes any necessary budget amendments for said acceptance. Continuing on with the consent agenda, number 8, motion that the Common Council approves the following resolution: that Huntington Memorial Library Huntington Park Enhancement Project Type 2 Secret Determination, whereas New York State Office of Parks and Recreation and Historic Preservation has awarded the Huntington Memorial Library an additional grant for enhancements to Huntington Park, and whereas provisions of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, (SEQRA), require a determination as part of the environmental review program, therefore be it resolved that the City of Oneonta Common Council hereby assumes responsibility as the lead agency under provisions of SEQRA for this project, and be it resolved that the Common Council hereby determines that this proposed park enhancement project is a Type 2 action as defined by New York State Statute, Section 617.5, C1 and C2, and be it resolved that the City of Oneonta is not required to conduct any further environmental review as a result of this Type 2 determination, and be it resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. Motion number 9, that the Common Council concurs with the Mayor's recommendation and approves the appointment of Jennifer Armstrong to the Housing Commission. This term would expire July 6, 2023. And that's it for our consent agenda. So we have 9 items there. And do I have a motion to approve? I'm sorry. Oh, I hate being here.
Do you have any that wish to pull?
Oh, there we go. It's my first meeting. No, not. So do we have any that we'd like to pull?
Please.
Okay, you've heard 3.
Just, no, number 9.
Number 9.
Yeah. I said please, but you already said you're done.
All right, do we have any other?
Number 4?
Number 4. And is that overpulling? Right. In that case, we're looking at motions 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And do I have a motion to approve? Katie, thank you. Followed by Katie, thank you. And no further discussion, so let's call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember LaPartie?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Duffin?
Aye.
Right, so with a little entertainment involved, that passes, and then we move to the motion number 4 that was pulled, and can you pull that?
Don't sit next to me, I'm a bad influence.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I do need a motion to approve. Thank you. I've got
I'll
a move,
second.
and I've got a second there. Thank you very much, Gary. And now, with that discussion.
I think just a quick question, and if I missed this, I apologize. I guess what happened with the initial $140,000 order? Did it fall through, or did it?
Answer that. No, it didn't fall through. We realized we made a mistake. We didn't have the updated quote from the company that included all of the correct options for the vehicle, the length of the room. So unfortunately, I'll take responsibility for that. We brought that forward too soon, so we had to bring it back because the price is higher for what we need.
Oh, thanks, Greg.
Any other, yes, Scott?
Luke, just one other thing, being on the finance committee, why, I voted to do this particular one. I didn't realize our city staff cut trees. We have certified people that cut trees. This bucket will actually let them get up to the trees where they need to be for safety. So instead of rocking the bucket, it actually has outriggers to bring down, so the truck is more stable.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, in that case, we'll call roll.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Dean?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Lepari Shu?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Falco?
Aye.
All right, very good, that passes, and that takes us to the motion number 9 that has been pulled. Do I have a motion to approve? I'm going to go with Luke, I'm going to call it Mark Davies, sorry.
That's
I'm going to
fine.
let you go.
That's fine. I just am not familiar with this person, Mayor, so I was hoping that you would share your thoughts on the skill and qualifications that made you select this person.
She has just a tremendously connective background in real estate. She works currently for Otsego 2000. She's engaged in that program that is looking at the historic nature of downtown. Honestly, she's got probably, she wouldn't want to hear me say, but she's probably got 20 years of relevant experience. So I think and they're just going to love her on that board. So she's going to be a very nice injection of personality on that board. So I highly recommend her.
Okay.
Any other questions on Jen Armstrong? Okay.
Wait, is she a city resident?
Thank you. Yes, she's a city, yes. I knew Glenn was sitting right to my right. I knew, she's a city resident.
Well, we want to be fair.
Of course we want to be fair. That's what we do here. So yes, she's a city resident.
Okay, great.
All right, so with that, any other questions on Jen? No. And in that case, that ends our discussion. If we could call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Lepari Shu?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Falco?
Aye.
All right, very good. All right, that takes us to discussion motion number 10, which is that the Common Council authorize an annual stipend in the amount of $10,000 to Stephen Yearly to perform the duties of Deputy Community Development Director. This stipend shall be effective February 16, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve? Go with Dave Risberger and then Mark Davies. Thank you. And discussion. Luke?
Is this the position that was this the position that we funded towards the end of the budget session?
Great.
Yes.
Yes, essentially, yeah.
Are we still looking to fill this vacancy?
Yes.
Okay.
So our current thought is after, some evaluation of potential candidates and what we can get for what we budgeted for this department and what really is the best option we feel for the future of community development partners to award this stipend to Stephen to assist in this area, continuing on as the code enforcement officer. We would then seek to fill, which we haven't identified a person for yet, we would advertise and seek to fill a community development assistant position, which would be the full-time, new full-time person that's currently taken.
Okay.
So we'd still be adding a person, and together this would kind of form the nucleus of that department for the coming year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Dave Risberger?
Yeah, I sent this to Greg and actually Judy earlier today in response to the email about this. I'm ready to vote in favor of this, provided that we go back to what we used to do, is have periodic updates on the grant programs for the city presented to the full council. So, I would like to see that every 6 months. I know it's not easy to do. It requires some work and putting some things together, but I think it would be helpful for all of us to know what's happening. So when we're asked questions from people in our wards, then we can have good answers.
Greg, you want to respond?
Yeah, absolutely. That's no problem at all. In fact, we've gone through several iterations of committees over the years, and since Judy's been here. There used to be a community development committee where Judy would report monthly on different updates and at least quarterly on everything. So I think that's something we can certainly go back to, perhaps with one of the committees that we've made, that we think.
Yeah, that sounds good. Other conversation, comment on this topic?
No, I would just like to back up what Councilmember Roosberger just mentioned, was that I think it's helpful for all of us at the council level to hear updates, periodic updates from our community development director, and now soon to be assistant director.
Tip your hand. All right, so with that, if there's no further discussion, then we'll call the vote.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Parishen?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Falco?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. So moving on to general item number 11, for discussion, motion that the common council approves the following resolution. Resolution waiving the application and filing requirements for the granting of real property tax exemptions for the age section 467 IN 2022, whereas Governor Kathy Hochul issued Executive Order 11.1 on December 26, 2021, whereas Executive Order 11.1 permits the governing body of any assessing unit to waive certain exemption mailing and filing requirements for the 2022 assessment roll. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Oneonta, pursuant to the authority granted by the Executive Order 11.1, hereby directs the city assessor to grant exemptions pursuant to Section 467 of the Real Property Tax Law on the 2022 assessment roll to all property owners who received that exemption on the 2021 assessment roll, thereby dispensing with, 1, the need for impacted property owners to file renewal applications, and 2, the requirement for the assessor to mail renewal applications to such persons. Be it further resolved that the City Council directs the assessor to require a property owner to file such a renewal application in instances when the assessor has reason to believe that an owner... Discussion. Any discussion?
Do we need to address this, looking forward into 23, if it doesn't get reinstated by the governor, that we have to send out a mailer to these folks to let them know that they're going to actually have to send in an application? I mean, how does this work?
Greg, are you prepared to answer that, or is this a call to?
That could be something we can discuss with the assessor, and certainly that's an option we can have to, I follow you, clarify that going back to the need to renew each year, once it doesn't go back in the next year.
Because if I was one of those individuals and I did it for 21 and then 22, I would just think that this is historical now and I don't have to file again. I have to send in an application, so I don't know. I just want to make sure that we don't put anybody in a hard position, I think.
Yeah, I can follow up. That's a good question.
To the end of our motions and to my call for any additional business or council discussion. There is, are we waiting a heartbeat for that, or so that's where we are? All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. So let me start with Mark Davies.
This kind of falls under correspondence, but I think it's also worthy of council discussion. We all received an email late January from Danny Lappin, when he was at that point the chair of the Housing Commission. Sorry, he's been longer in that role. He sent us a series of recommendations coming from the Housing Commission. I just think we need to have some discussion on it. I don't know that this is the appropriate place. I think that we should probably have some of that discussion in committee. I'd really like to recommend that the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Chair, Economic Development Chair, and Legislative Chair perhaps take a look at those and think that there might be my thinking there was some opportunity to discuss some of those recommendations pieced out. That might be, again, worthy of discussion, and I think that the committee would be the appropriate place to start those discussions. So we're just looking for everyone to take a look at that. If you haven't yet read it through, it's a very insightful, a lot of information. I really appreciate kind of getting the information from that group. And it's worthy of a read. So if you could consider that in your next meeting, that'd be great.
I heartily concur. I think that's a great idea. Please take a look at that. There was additional, yes, please.
Yeah, we all recently filled out our own review on our city administrator in the 6-month review. And I was wondering, when are we going to be, with our next discussion regarding that, and when are we going to have a discussion about future goals?
Right. So I can answer to start with. This is a little bit on me. Actually, it's a lot on me. This has been provided to me several days ago by her, and I've been spinning a few plates literally. So I have not had an opportunity to even as much as open the email that I know is going to require a couple of hours of my life once I've opened it. I will do that tomorrow or certainly Thursday at the latest, and the time that's needed, because it's going to require some of my input. At that point, I think, Katie, you and I should, we'll get together and talk about what the next logical move in terms of then engaging council might be. Does that sound about right to you? And then with that, we'll be able to establish some timelines, which will be relatively soon. They're not to be put off at all. And a strategy within the context of those timelines for determining the goals and whatever benchmarks, et cetera, we want to bring to this as we look at the next year of the city administrator's life. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so are we talking maybe by the end of next week, we should have some more time?
I would think so, Katie. Does that sound about right to you? If I'm back to you on Thursday, that we would probably be able to sit down on Friday and figure out where we go and share that with everybody.
I'm at a conference on Thursday and Friday, so.
So it's all right with everyone when we're into the middle part of next week, but it's a priority. All right. Any other, yes? Like,
I know historically, the council does not recognize in a more formal way long-term employees and or retirements. I brought this up to our personnel director. Just open discussion here that I sincerely doubt there's none of us that would not want to recognize someone that's put in long-term employment for the city of Oneonta and or retirement. I just think we're maybe not showing enough respect to that type of dedication to the city of Oneonta and its residents for long-term employees. So I'd like to see in the future that we recognize 15, 20, 25, and 30, 35, if we have those employees working for the city of Oneonta, and also the retirements. We just recently had a retirement out of the Oneonta Fire Department. As most individuals of the city, this individual had put in long-term. And, you know, it's kind of a shame that we didn't recognize this individual along with all the other individuals that have retired. So from this day forward, that's what we did.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in on that if I could. So I don't talk to you about this, but what we're going to wind up doing, just say we are, is recognizing and throwing a spotlight on staff on a monthly basis here as we move forward, and that would be an opportune time for us to do that as well.
It sounds like an annual goal that we should have for our city administrator to establish a program through the different departments, so that way we all know that's happening. Because certainly we don't know.
He's just hearing about this now, and I just thought about this yesterday.
So I think that's a great idea, Lance, but I put that as a number one goal on that list for the future.
I like it. All right, do we have anything else? I've got something here, obviously.
If we're not gonna do executive session for the other, I'd like a quick executive session, because you received an email as well, and I think the council should hear an update. And I know David responded a couple of times to me about the litigation that we got going on in the 6th ward.
Well, it sounds like we already are heading to executive session, so we'll add that to it then. We also then, if that's the end of our additional business, the council discussion, we have a 30-day SLA notice. You'll almost have to tell me what my next step is here.
Just summarize the application. So it's a 30-day application for review. They're looking for a new license to operate at 99 Main Street for liquor, wine, beer, and cider. I'm just looking to see if there's any objections to that.
And I can add to that now that I've been led properly down the right path. And this is Jim Seymour from the Black Oak in Liberty. Is probably aware how he's kind of resuscitated the Black Oak and Hampstead, I think. And Mike Jubert from Wise Guys. So they have teamed up on the Black Oak. Their intention is to bring Mike's kitchen, essentially, with the addition of maybe pizza ovens or whatever, if they're able to make that happen. They're determining what their type of food is going to be, but it's going to be a restaurant and a bar. They're looking, the reason it's called Brew U, they're looking to have some of the college crowd, but they are also really, and their intention was to potentially put in, they were gonna do a Roots-like kind of presentation. They determined that was more than they could get into, and so they have some craft beers that are being made under their brand by, I think it's Blighted. Brewery, and then they'll have various games and arcade type of things, and try to position themselves to be a little bit more of a tourist-oriented attraction during the summertime. And then they will see how it plays out, but obviously as Brew U, as a university, they've got their eyes on the college crowd. They're also very much aware of the history of that building. You would think, being 2 doors down from the police station, that would be a no-brainer, you'd have no issues there, but that's not been the case. But they are very well aware of it and committed to running a type of business that will be successful. So this is fine. Go ahead, Kate.
Oh, sorry, it's related, but not about this, so if I just wanted to say something.
Okay, so at this point, are we gonna do something with this? Just.
So they're looking for a waiver of their 30-day notice,
Mhm.
so just looking for any objections from council as to why they should not be granted that.
Mayor, I have no objection.
And is there anyone that does have an objection? All right, then I think we can call that done. Thank you very much. All right, so with that, did I see a hand up for something else?
Yeah, it's just related to that. I just wanted to follow up that I've been in contact with the SLA with regard to the license for the hometown deli. They completed their investigation on January 28th. And they're preparing a report that'll go in front of the full board at an upcoming meeting. They couldn't give me the date of that meeting or the time frame, but they did tell me that the investigation is completed and it's moving forward and that they would keep me posted. So I just wanted to share that update with everybody.
All right, terrific. So with that, we're gonna move to, unless there is somebody else, we haven't heard from you. So we'll move on to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? No additional correspondence. We do believe that there's at least one, potentially 2 subjects to discuss in executive session.
Ongoing litigation and direct personnel issues, correct?
Yes.
I think we have to name them already. That's it.
Thank you.
I need a motion.
So I need a motion. Thank you very much, Dave, followed by Katie. Thank you very much. And then at this point, we will. Yeah.
Go by acclamation.
Yeah, let's why not? Let's just wait for that.
Yes.
Yes.
You want me to remain?
Yes.
You have to designate me to remain.
Oh, yeah, being a city attorney.
And
I know that, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So speaking.
All right, so our meeting of the common council continues now out of executive session, and we have a motion to put on the floor.
Yes, I move that the common council approves the city administrator's immediate appointment of transportation director David Hoteling to the position of acting city administrator for service in this position during the active tenure of the current city administrator for an annual stipend of $5,000.
Second, I'm going to go with Mark Davies as the second. Do we have discussion? Scott?
Just want on record, because I had to leave the executive session for possible conflicts, that I will not be voting on this.
That's fine. All right, and any other comments or discussion? No, in that case,
Councilmember Lippy,
Aye.
Councilmember Davies,
Yes.
Councilmember Roseburger,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFarge,
Aye.
Councilmember Parsons,
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington,
Abstain.
Councilmember Patton.
Aye.
and that passes. Now, if there is no other business, our second, my fourth meeting, our first meeting in person has now just come to an end.